Part 35. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 341. When Chen Ju squatted down to pick up the microphone that he accidentally dropped, Lin Yo walked to the edge of the stage and said, "Director Chen." Chen Yiwen looked at him with a complicated expression. Since the situation has happened now, he can't help but think more about it. That 200,000 yuan painting, and the name that made Chen Ju's face change greatly, were obviously well prepared. He now even doubted whether Chen Ju would appear in the audience, and whether it had been expected by Lin Yo. "What else do you want?" Lin Yo had a hint of apology on his face. "I've caused trouble to Director Chen. I also want to invite someone to the stage." Ever since he suffered a huge somersault that almost made him unable to get up 3 years ago, Lin Yo has come to a clear understanding: don't underestimate anyone in this world. Even if that person looks harmless or even weak. The Director Chen in front of him is undoubtedly a smart man, and he should have guessed some of his private arrangements. Chen Yiwen sighed in his heart. This is the end of it. If he doesn't agree to this request, the audience probably won't agree either. "Is it the Lin Yuan you just mentioned?" Lin Yo's expression darkened and he nodded. "It's her." "Where are the people?" "Already in the lobby on the first floor of the TV station." Chen Yiwen took a deep look at Lin Yo and waved to a staff member who was nearby. "Go and pick it up." "Thank you, Director Chen." After picking up the microphone, Chen Ju quickly explained the accident. "Sorry, my hand slipped accidentally." Seeing Lin Yo come back, he sneered somewhat deliberately, "Each of my works is unique. Why? Do you want to copy it again? You are the only one who wants to copy other people's paintings and then create them for the competition. You deserve it." Lin Yo knew that Chen Ju could not really respond to his verbal stimulation and copy his own work on the spot. After all, he had never actually painted it. Wouldn't this copying be exposed in front of so many people? Fortunately, what he originally wanted to hear was Chen Ju's words: "Every work is unique." This man really lived up to his expectations. "Are you sure that each of your works is unique?" Chen Ju saw his reaction and felt a little unsure. When he was in the audience before, he only made a few mocking remarks to others, but this person looked like he wanted to eat him. Now that he is mocking in front of so many people with a microphone, Lin Yo's mood becomes more stable. Is it possible that this person really found any evidence? It's impossible. It's definitely a scam. He won't be fooled. Otherwise, my fans all know my habit. I like to paint in one go. After all, inspiration is fleeting, and the original feeling will not be the same when I paint again. After the painting is completed, it will be scanned and uploaded to the internet as soon as possible, so as to avoid people like you are using my paintings to make a fuss. Even if someone wants to copy them, they can only use them for practice and cannot be used for other purposes. You are so brave, and my lawyer team is not jealous." Speaking of this, an idea flashed in Chen Ju's mind, and he couldn't help but laugh. "Don't you still want to copy my other works, and then accuse me of plagiarizing you again? Lin Yo, can you please change your approach? Are you tired of using it yourself?" "I'm tired of seeing it." Lin Yo listened to the ridicule quietly, took a deep breath, and said in a deep voice, "Green plum, the green plum you sold a year ago, now I have it in my hand. There is a farmhouse in the painting." Chen Ju interrupted before he could finish. "I once got interested and went to a farmhouse for a vacation, and saw the picture painted on the green plum tree in the yard." "What? My family is rich, but that doesn't stop me from thinking about it. Go live in a farmhouse. If there is no evidence, there is no evidence. Is it interesting to force this?" Compared to Chen Ju, who was obviously a little impatient, Lin Yo became more and more determined and calm. He even smiled good-naturedly after hearing this speech and said, "I haven't finished speaking yet. Why are you in a hurry? Who told you to talk nonsense? Forget it, I'm too lazy to talk to you anymore, Chenju said, waving his hands and preparing to throw away the microphone and leave the stage. However, at this moment, the door of the recording hall was pushed open from the outside. Open! An angry shout came straight from the door. Chenju, you little bastard, I have finally found you. This voice directly attracted the attention of everyone in the recording hall. At first glance, everyone's eyes fell on the girl sitting in the wheelchair at the door of the hall. The girl has short hair cut close to her ears, with bangs covering her forehead. Her face is gloomy and pale, and her eyes are dark but lifeless. Only when she heard the name Chenju did she feel a slight fluctuation. The person pushing the wheelchair was a swarthy man with a height of 1.9 meters, but his hair was already gray. The deep Sichuan pattern between his eyebrows was even more profound when he looked at Chenju standing on the stage. He looked wide-eyed. I wish I could chew people up and eat them. This time, there was no need for the staff to lead the way, so he strode in with his wheelchair. When he got to the stage, he let go of the wheelchair and stepped onto the stage. When Chenju was still stunned and the others didn't react, he just waved his fist. Passed. Qianyaya was a little close this time, and she even clearly felt the force of the fist. She was so frightened that she couldn't help but let out a soft ah, and was pulled back by Suyi to avoid being affected. The sound of the fist hitting the flesh was heard loudly, and it was spread by the microphone. Everyone could not help but feel their teeth aching just listening to it. Chenju, who was about to step down, suddenly had a nosebleed. Calm down, the host was really panicking now. Mister, we are still recording the show. If you have any personal grudges with Mr. Chen, please let it go first. How about we resolve it in private? The girl sitting quietly in the wheelchair in the audience also said softly, Dad. Few people in the messy recording hall could hear this sound clearly, but the angry and ferocious man on the stage suddenly changed his expression, and the fist he swung out stopped in mid-air, and finally changed to look at Chen. Ju pointed over and said fiercely, You little bastard, wait for me. Then he quickly changed his face, and raised a kind smile towards the girl sitting under the stage. Hey, Yun, Dad just saw this turtle grandson who was so angry that he couldn't hold it back for a moment. The sound of kite immediately reminded everyone of the Len Yun that Lin Yo mentioned just now. At this moment, seeing Len Yun again, the burly father wished he could be like Chen Jui on the stage, and suddenly imagined a lot of drama in his mind. When Len Yun was carried to the stage in a wheelchair by Leng's father, and even the microphone was raised to her lips by Leng's father, everyone realized, such a girl who didn't seem to have any flaws actually didn't even have a microphone. Lift up the law. For a moment, the look in his eyes suddenly showed a lot of pity and sympathy. Len Yun has long been used to such looks. She looked up and saw Lin Yo nodding towards her to indicate that it was okay to talk. Then there was a slight fluctuation in her heart. She cleared her throat and said, Hello everyone, I am Len Yun, the original author of Green Plum, and I was also Chenju's girlfriend. When she said this, she paused and laughed at herself. However, the title of girlfriend was only realized when I found out that he actually had another purpose for being good to me, and I chose to jump off the building out of despair. Just what I thought. Boom. There was an uproar in the hall. The amount of information in these words is too great. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 342. Len Yun ignored Chenju's eyes with splitting eyes and said, When Lin Yo found me, I actually didn't want to bother with it. I almost ruined my family because of a single thought, but Chenju should just be his Chen family. We can't afford to offend the young master of the group, and we don't dare to offend him. These words made many people feel sad and their faces became solemn. Family destroyed and people destroyed, these 4 words are really too heavy. But Lin Yo told me that I am not an exception. Not only my green plum, it became the work of another person for no reason, and there were other people who suffered, more than one. Everyone's eyes couldn't help but turn to Chenju, who was still holding his nose. If they remember correctly, when this man first came on stage, he proudly introduced that he had sold many works, and even sold a single work for a high price of 4 to 5 million yuan. Look now, are these works really created by Chenju? Len Yuan suffered the same fate as Len Yuan after his paintings were stolen. What about other people whose paintings were also stolen? Will they suffer the same fate as Len Yuan? Just thinking about it makes them shudder. I understand the feeling of having my own work stolen by thieves. It is a hard work, even an emotional sustenance and belief in perseverance, so I finally decided to take this trip at Lin Yu's request. Shut up. The words were interrupted. Len Yuan turned around and looked over, her eyes falling on Chenju's face full of disgust. What, are you scared? I don't know you at all. You are a lunatic. Your father is also a lunatic. You actually dare to beat people on the show. Who would believe what a lunatic says? Chen Jui turned around after venting his anger and couldn't wait to jump off the stage, but was stopped by Lin Yu. Step aside. Lin Yu just looked at him coldly. If you leave now, you are guilty of running away. Do you want to admit that you plagiarized? Chen Jui glared at him fiercely. I didn't. If you don't have one, then why don't you dare to stay? The veins on Chen Ju's forehead jumped suddenly, and then he realized that he had been forced into a dilemma. He wanted to call home, but when he touched his trouser pocket, he remembered that the program team was afraid that the audience would accidentally expose the recording content before the show started, so they asked them to hand in their mobile phones when they entered the recording studio. I'm too lazy to play these tricks with you, Lin Yu, you can do it? In order to clear your name, you even found this kind of special actor. Looking at the trapped beast in front of him, Lin Yu listened to him quietly and said, whatever you say. I have also prepared other evidence for you. I have put a lot of effort into it. Why don't you stay and take a look? Chen Jui clenched his fists and restrained himself from swinging them to break the calm. His heart was getting louder and his face was turning red without him realizing it, but he didn't know it. Young Master Chen's expression is so scary. I guess what Len Yuan said must be true. This is a show being filmed. No one would dare to act on a national TV variety show. I feel like there is no need to hesitate, it must be true. It doesn't matter what he looks like. If it's all true, then what this man did is terrible. With Chen's back, everything is lawless. Lin Yu's actions were considered gentlemanly, but Father Len was not polite. Step forward and grab Chen Ju by the collar, dragging him back like a little chicken. Little bastard, did I let you go? Everyone. It seems that there is no need to worry about Chen Ju running away. Len Yuan watched Chen Ju being dragged back, unmoved by the request in his eyes. Dad, please take out my paintings and photos. And the one of yours, Lin Yu. Father Len holding Chen Ju with one hand, he took out a well-preserved painting scroll from his bag with the other hand. After looking around at the people standing on the stage, he finally handed it to Zhang Lingzi, who was standing in the corner. Please help this girl get it for me. He was specifically warned before coming here, and he knew very well how important the painting in his hand was. The boy has heavy hands and he is afraid of accidentally tearing it. Two of the other three girls looked a little afraid of him, and the girl standing in the corner looked the calmest. Zhang Lingzi raised her eyebrows slightly, glanced at Chen Ju, who was still holding onto the other person's hand, and reached out to take the painting from his other hand. Thank you. I also have these photos, please help me get them. Zhang Lingzi took the photo and saw that the top photo was of a green plum tree. Under the tree, there were two people who looked like mother and daughter eating plums. Although the little girl with pigtails was sore, the face was wrinkled together, but one could tell at a glance that it was Len Yuan from childhood. Lin Yu also took out his painting Green Plum, which he bought for 200,000 yuan. The evidence was complete, and soon, the three works on the big screen were taken down. This time, they were replaced with Green Plum, which was one large and one small, but looked almost exactly the same. Attached were a few more yellowed ones. Photo. Len Yuen watched the big screen for a while before speaking to the microphone fixed in front of her by the program team. Chenju doesn't know that I have a habit of painting. Before each creation, I like to draw a small portrait. It feels like only when you are satisfied will you start painting. Chenju used sweet talk to trick me into taking Green Plum away, but he didn't know that I still had a small portrait of Green Plum in my hand. There are also those photos of green plum trees that were planted in the yard when my family used to live in the countryside. They were also the prototypes of the green plum in my painting. There is a date of shooting on the back of the photo. This cannot be faked. Chenju, can you still say categorically that green plum was created by you? Our family has never opened any farmyard, let alone received a young master like you. Li Wangsuan glanced distressedly at Len Yuen, who was sitting in a wheelchair and could only move her head. She took the initiative to walk to the two works and pick them up to appreciate them carefully for a while. Looking at the painting Green Plum alone, there is no doubt that this is a young girl who is very talented and clever in calligraphy and painting. It's a pity that I can no longer hold a pen. I, Li Wangsuan, can tell you responsibly that the two large and small paintings of Green Plum were indeed created by the same person. They do have the characteristics of the green plum tree in the photo, she said and looked at her. The guests waved, come and take a look, too. Zhang Lingzi was standing next to the work. When she heard Li Wangsuan's greeting, she nodded. You can tell that it was painted by the same person. Some of the brush stroke habits are exactly the same. It is difficult to imitate, let alone be exactly the same. After a pause, he added, unfortunately, I just used my mobile phone to search other works of this young man from the Chen family, and I found something interesting. Li Wangsuan cooperated from the side. Oh. After reading it, I realized that the styles of Mr. Chen's works are changeable and capable of almost everything. He can even control completely opposite styles with ease. Anyway, I can't do it myself, and I admire it very much. After saying this, many people couldn't help but laugh. Everyone present here has some knowledge of calligraphy and painting. Naturally, they also know that a famous painter will basically develop his own unique style, which is also the recognition of the painter. This is the consensus in the circle. For example, when Mr. Li previously commented on Su Yi's teacher, who is also his younger brother, he said that the inspiration comes into painting. This is a unique characteristic of a painter. Zhang Lingzi's statement was obviously ironic. Green Plum is now endorsed by Mr. Li, and it is absolutely certain that Chenju stole it from Len Yuen. As for other works with varied styles, they must have been stolen from other people, which leads to the completely different style of the work. Unite. Lin Yo looked at Zhang Lingzi, who had a cold sense of humor. He was originally going to mention this, but he didn't expect that Zhang Lingzi said it first, and the effect was not bad. He continued, I also investigated that there is a painting and calligraphy studio under Chenju's name, which is semi-philanthropic. As we all know, learning to paint is very expensive. Many people like painting, but in the end they choose to give it up because of this. Paintbrushes. Chenju's studio uses this to recruit many young people who are talented in calligraphy and painting but do not have enough financial support. At first, they superficially support their creations, and then wait until these people are moved and grateful for the work. If they feel a sense of belonging to the studio, they will be fooled into signing a contract that is like a contract of betrayal. By then, even if these people create sufficiently outstanding and stunning works, they will not belong to themselves but to Chenju. This is how Chenju achieves his success. Own reputation. This talent is not a new star in the world of calligraphy and painting, but a cancer. He made up his mind to come to this show, not only to take this opportunity to cleanse himself, but also to expose all the evil deeds of Chenju on the spot in front of everyone watching the show. I will be nailed to the pillar of shame of being a plagiarist for the rest of my life. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 343. Chapter 343, It's Too Late to Apologize, Beat Me to a Pig's Head. The program was suspended from recording after all. The crowd was really excited, and even the guests were a little emotional. Even old artists like Li Wangsuan and Zhang Nashuan, who have been deeply involved in calligraphy and painting all their lives, almost couldn't hold back the current behavior, which was simply a disguised attempt to kill the rising stars in the world of calligraphy and painting. I picked up my phone and called the police on the spot. But the one who was even more angry was Leng's father, who had been suppressing his anger so much that he had not been able to vent it. Finally, when Chen Ju was allowed to leave the stage, he grabbed him and slapped him twice on the head as soon as he got off the stage. Okay, not only did you harm my daughter, but you also harmed so many young people, you deserve to die. I tell you, people like you deserve to go to the 18th level of hell. After saying that, he slapped her twice again. Because of such a dog-like person, my daughter jumped off a building. After she was rescued with great difficulty, she was diagnosed by a doctor as high-level paralysis. She could only lie down in bed or be fixed in a wheelchair for the rest of her life and needed someone to take care of her to survive. The wife was so angry that the bad body collapsed directly, and their family ended up in this situation, but the culprit could still live his life of wealth and enjoyment without being affected at all. Why? Thinking about how his daughter secretly wanted to commit suicide several times, and how she was reluctant to leave her father to live alone in the world but barely managed to hold it back, the eyes of the 19-meter-tall man were already red. I really want to kill you. Seeing that Chen Ju's face was red and swollen from being beaten, everyone looked at each other, but they didn't think of stopping him. They have not experienced the tragic past of the Leng family father and daughter. Although they cannot empathize with them, there is one thing that they also despise: Chen Ju's actions. I always feel that if I try to stop it now, I will be an accomplice. Let go, let me go. Chen Ju saw that no one came to help him pull away the crazy Leng father, and struggled harder and harder. He now had no time to think about how to save the situation. He just wanted to get rid of himself first. Rescued from Father Leng's hands. This man looked at him so fiercely that he really wanted to beat him to death. The young master of the Chen family, who has always relied on the wealth and people in his family, to be protected and escaped no matter how reckless he was, this time he met someone who really wanted to risk his life and wanted him to die a good death. I'm really scared. With swollen cheeks and tears streaming down her face, she mumbled and begged for mercy. I apologize. I can apologize to Leng Yuan in public online. I can also bear all her medical expenses in the future, so don't settle. I'm sorry, it's too late. It's great to have a few bad guys, right? I don't want a penny. I want my daughter to be healthy. Can you do it? One sentence, 2 slaps in the face. Seeing the blood coming from the corner of Chen Jui's mouth, a staff member couldn't help but tugged on Chen Weiwen's arm. Director Chen, if you keep beating like this, Chen Jui will be in danger. If this was in a private place, and the beating was more serious, he wouldn't say anything and might even yell hello. But they are still recording the show, so they can't let this cold father continue to fight like this. Chen Weiwen also felt that it was almost done, but he didn't have much confidence in persuading people to stop. After all, if you think about it, if your daughter were, then he wouldn't be calmer than this cold father. I'll try to see if I can calm him down first. As he was about to step forward, a voice came a little faster than him. Dad. With the sound of Dad, Leng's father's palm, which was about to be waved out again, suddenly stopped, and he quickly turned his head to look in the direction of his daughter. Yuan, are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere? No, Len Yuan shook her head gently, looking at the face under her father's hand that looked like a pig's head. Dad, it's okay. I feel much better when I see him like this. When this matter comes to light, there will be some problems. More people help us judge him. His blood is too dirty, don't get your hands dirty. Okay, okay, Dad listens to Yuan Yuan. Leng's father looked at the drops of blood splashed on his hands at some point and looked for tissues from his bag. At the same time, his hands suddenly loosened, and Chen Pei, who was already dazed and unsteady, was thrown directly to the ground. The back of his head hit the floor with a thud that made one's teeth ache. No one came forward to help him for a while. Qian Yaya couldn't help biting her nails and asked Zhang Lingzi in a low voice, "Sister Zhang, if you call the police on this kind of thing, will Chen Ju be sentenced?" Zhang Lingzi is not sure, mainly because she has not finished reading the books on modern law. But even if she hasn't finished reading it yet, based on her intuition and what she knows so far, what Chen Ju has done is a bit overwhelming. Then he turned to look at Shen Yunqing, who was standing on the other side. "What do you think?" Although there is already evidence that Chen Ju coaxed Len Yuan's works to gain fame and fortune, and it is also known that Chen Ju's studio is tempting young painters to sign prostitution contracts for his own benefit, but if we look into this carefully, it will only arouse the public's moral concerns. The condemnation does not meet the sentencing standards. After all, Chen Ju is also a kid from a wealthy family, and it's not like he has never used legal weapons to defend his rights before. This Chen Ju, or the person behind Chen Ju, knows how to grasp the degree of this. They had already made preparations before doing these things. Even if the incident accidentally came to light and they were really involved, the damage caused would be acceptable to the Chen family. The lives of ordinary people, as well as the pain and struggles they encountered during this period, how could they feel it if they were so high above them? Just like this time, if Chen Ju were not present, with the strength of the Leng family's father and daughter, they would not even be able to get to Chen Jui's side, let alone take revenge. Shen Yunqing's voice was neither soft nor serious, and his tone was calm enough, but the people around him who heard these words felt a strong sense of powerlessness in their hearts. Is it possible that if he is beaten just once, nothing will happen to him? After all, it's just about being condemned by the public. As long as you don't go online, don't leave the house, or just cover your ears, you won't be able to hear it. Especially because Chen Ju can do such a thing, it shows that he himself has no sense of morality, and he will probably feel no pain even if he is scolded a few times. Not to mention that Chen Ju's family still has money, so they can send him abroad for a period of time before this matter explodes. The public is very forgetful. When they first hear about this incident, they may be filled with indignation and curse a few words, but as time goes by, no one will keep this incident in mind, except the victims. When Chen Ju comes back, then he can still be his young master of the Chen family. When Qian Yaya thought of this, her eyebrows suddenly knitted into knots. It's still effective after all. Zhang Lingzi looked at the jealous little girl in front of her with the same calm expression as Shen Yunqing. They have seen too many similar things in their previous lives, and even more cruel ones abound. Now it's no longer possible to have too many disturbances in my heart. Don't worry, let's wait and see what happens next. Zhang Lingzi looked at the two people standing together not far away, holding hands and silently celebrating the stage victory. Lin Yo laid the groundwork and made so many arrangements in one breath. You don't need to think deeply to guess how much hard work and effort he put in to investigate Chen Ju. Thinking about it now, he probably won't let it go so easily and watch Chen Ju continue to be the young master of his Chen family after the incident. I just don't know what other options this young couple has. She expressed that she was looking forward to it. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 344. Chapter 344, Something Big is Going On, Call Me. Originally, the program team wanted to help call the police, but now that the evidence is complete, Chen Zhu made a profit of 200,000 yuan from Len Yuan's works. After calling the police, the 200,000 yuan can be recovered, and even fined several times. However, Len Yuan shook her head and declined. Let alone 200,000, even 2 million is just a drop in the bucket for the Chen family. Even Chen Zhu himself can easily take it out. But if she took the money, it would be equivalent to Chen Zhu just losing a small amount of pocket money and rewriting the plagiarism of Green Plum. She would rather give up the money and label Chen Hui as a plagiarist of Green Plum, which is a despicable title. There are some people present who don't understand this, and Qianyaya is one of them. Why don't you call the police to recover the money? Doesn't she need the money more now? She wants to guard something more important than this money. Moreover, Zhang Lingzi paused and spoke softly, think about it, if everyone after watching this program learned that Len Yuan was relying on, what would you think if Green Plum received more money from a plagiarist than the value of the work itself? Qianyaya lowered her head and thought seriously for a moment, then hesitantly said, I think she will be less angry. Len Yuan was miserable, but after all, she chose to jump by herself. Everyone sympathized with her, but if such a thing did not happen to her, she would not be able to empathize with her and would not be able to understand why she would be so desperate that she jumped from the building. How many people in the world have the same experience? Most people still choose to sit on the sidelines. Chen Zhu had a pig-headed face and asked to leave early. In addition, the Leng family and his daughter had no intention of calling the police. Naturally, the program team could not forcibly detain him. The mobile phone that was collected earlier was also returned to its original owner. Chen Zhu felt the still very strong gaze not far away, and while sweating coldly, he quickly turned on his mobile phone, first called his bodyguards, and told them to come over and protect him. The second call was to my elder brother. Although he was beaten until his head was dizzy, he already intuitively felt that the situation was developing badly. I'm afraid I can't handle it with my own ability, so I can only ask my more capable elder brother for help. Ignoring the fact that there were other people around, when I heard the sound of the phone being connected, I shouted towards the phone with a tearful tone, brother, save me, and also, help me. Chen Rui, who was taking his little girlfriend on vacation at the beach, what's going on? Why does your voice sound vague? You were kidnapped. It's more serious than kidnapping. Feeling the disdainful looks from all around, Chen Zhu felt secretly resentful in his heart, and deliberately lowered his voice when he spoke again, brother, I'm really in trouble this time. If you don't come back, your brother, I'm going to be ruined. So serious, Chen Rui frowned and straightened up from the recliner. What happened? It's not convenient to say this. Anyway, please come back and help me. Please, brother, this matter is really serious. Lin Yo said that he asked the people in the studio to sign the deed of sale, which he did, but this should never come out of his mouth in public. Even though his mind is confused now, he has not forgotten this. Hang up the phone. Chen Rui kept this posture and sat still for a few seconds, until a pair of soft, boneless hands came up to him. Who called? Normally, Chen Rui would have hugged the person over, but now he was disturbed by his brother's call. He took his hand away from his chest and said, my brother. Your brother, my real brother? I remember his name is Chen Shui, right? Seeing that the person in front of him was in a bad mood, Lin Suifei took her hand back knowingly. She can stay with Chen Rui for such a long time, and even has a tendency to get closer, because of this knowledge. Is this causing trouble? Chen Rui frowned and shook his head. I didn't make it clear on the phone. It sounds like it's quite serious. I can still call, and my personal safety should be fine as long as the person is still well. It's not too serious. This comfort was quite effective. Chen Rui's face softened visibly. Well, let's go back and have a look. From his tone, there might be something wrong. Chen Rui still attaches great importance to his only biological brother. Especially since this kid has no intention of competing with him for the Chen group. He only focuses on his calligraphy and painting studio. He obviously has no artistic talent but insists on creating a literary and artistic setting. Just like my little girlfriend, she is knowledgeable and knowledgeable. As an older brother, he doesn't mind caring a little more about his only biological brother. Lin Suifei is actually a little reluctant. She is still on a break from work. Now she can finally go out and relax. She doesn't have to sit at home and only be jealous of other people's resources. She hasn't even relaxed for a few days, and she has to go back again. But seeing that Chen Rui had already gotten up and walked towards his residence, he had no choice but to get up and chase after him. Asterisk. Watching Chen Ju being escorted away by several bodyguards wearing sunglasses and suits, everyone looked away in silence. I felt like I was holding a breath in my heart. Now I can only silently pray that the program can be broadcast smoothly as scheduled and expose all the evil things someone has done. Why can someone be so arrogant after doing so many things that harm others and benefit themselves? Lin Yo and Len Yuan looked at each other after retracting their gaze. The eyes of the two of them were calmer than the others. Long before they took this opportunity to expose Chen Ju's true identity, they had already imagined countless possibilities and the corresponding results. This is all I can do. Well, you go back and have a good rest, and leave the rest to me. I'll ask my dad to help keep an eye on what's going on online and wait for your good news. Good. It was almost noon. Chen Yiwen looked at the time and announced that he would continue recording after everyone had lunch. It also gives everyone more time to adjust their emotions. After all, no matter what, the recording of the program must be completed before it can be edited and broadcast. He felt that he also needed to calm down. I thought that Lin Yo just wanted to take the opportunity to clear his name, but who knew that this kid could still bring out such a big surprise. The show has been running smoothly until now, and it is finally his turn as the director to go bald. The Leng family's father and daughter did not stay. The food Len Yuan eats now must strictly follow the recipes prescribed by the doctor. Even if the program team wants to let the father and daughter have a meal, they cannot provide food that Len Yuan can eat for a while. While everyone else was heading to the canteen, Lin Yo and Alin went to see off Len Yuan and Leng's father. When saying goodbye, Len Yuan suddenly said, "When the program is broadcast, the judges of the youth painting and calligraphy competition will probably re-evaluate your Under the Moonlight. Lin Yo smiled, "Although I no longer care about the prize money from the competition, I am still very happy to think that I can rectify my name. Don't be in a hurry, take your time. When this incident passes, with your talent, sooner or later you will have a place in the world of calligraphy and painting. Then I'll lend you some good advice. Don't worry, I've been waiting for so long, so I won't be impatient. But there is one person who is particularly anxious at this moment. Go to the corridor of the cafeteria." Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing were walking just behind Zhang Nashuan and Li Wangsuan. Just as everyone was about to enter the door, a cell phone ringtone that did not fit the taste of young people today suddenly rang. Zhang Nashuan took out his mobile phone and squinted at the incoming call notification, then his steps suddenly stopped. As soon as he stopped, Li Wangsuan also stopped. The people following him naturally stopped. After Zhang Lingzi stood still, she glanced at the mobile phone in Zhang Nashuan's hand, turned back, and stretched out her hand to Su Ling'an, who was following behind. "Come on." End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 345. Chapter 345. Mr. Zhang's granddaughter. Su Ling'an subconsciously put his hand on Zhang Lingzi's palm. The somewhat cold fingertips were suddenly wrapped in warmth. The noisy sounds in my ears faded away like water, and in the end, only the voice of Mr. Zhang, who was suspected to be his grandfather, answered the phone, and my sister's gentle but extremely calm voice, "Don't be afraid, what is supposed to come will always come." It cannot be denied that she was indeed a little scared and hesitant at the moment. Even if she and Mr. Zhang were indeed blood relatives, they had only known each other for less than 2 days. To her, he was still a strange old man whom she only knew a little bit. How would the other party view her as a junior? There are also her biological parents. She only heard Mr. Zhang mention his little daughter, but not a word about her little daughter's husband. Why is this? Does it have anything to do with being thrown away in the first place? Her intuition told her that there should be some unknown past events, and they were also bad past events. She hasn't called her grandma yet. How will she feel when she finds out? Will she be afraid that she will be picked up by relatives on the other side and never return to her original home? One more thing, this old Mr. Zhang also has a son. What attitude will he have towards her niece who seems to suddenly appear from the cracks in the rocks? There were a lot of chaotic thoughts in her mind for a moment, until she raised her eyes and met a pair of eyes that seemed to hide mountains and deep lakes, and all her thoughts were suddenly blown away by the wind. She is not alone in facing all this. Okay, hurry up and come over with the appraisal report. Just come directly to the Imperial TV station. When you get there, I'll have someone bring you up. Anan happens to be there too. A voice full of joy sounded in the corridor, and Zhang Lingzi felt the fingers in her palm tremble suddenly. After Zhang Nashuan hung up the phone, he turned around and walked quickly to Su Ling'an. He looked into the child's eyes, Qing Lingling, and took a deep breath. He didn't care about anyone else present, and said in a trembling tone, "Anan, appraisal, the results are out, can you please call me grandpa and let me hear it?" Everyone who was still wondering why this old gentleman walked straight to Zhang Lingzi's little assistant after answering the phone. At this moment, nothing could come to their mind, only 4 big words filled their minds: what's going on? How come this little assistant is Mr. Zhang's granddaughter? But no one dared to run over and ask the old man, dumbfounded at this time. Didn't they see that although Mr. Li's eyes were full of surprise, he still stood firm and did not make a sound? Standing in the center surrounded by everyone's eyes, even though her sister held her hand and gave her courage, Su Ling'an still couldn't shout out the word grandpa after opening her mouth several times. Not only are the people unfamiliar, but the names are also unfamiliar. It was too hasty and sudden, and she couldn't bear the eyes that were filled with so much expectation. Seeing this, Zhang Nashuan's face couldn't help but darken, and his face that didn't smile often showed a wrinkled smile towards his lost granddaughter. "Grandpa is too impatient, so I'll wait until you can accept me as an old man." Li Wangsuan then stepped forward and said, "Teacher, please calm down first. Everyone is hungry too. Let's go in first and talk while we eat." Anan, Xiao 11, she looked at Shen Yunqing, who had been standing beside Zhang Lingzi, and "Mr. Shen, you guys are coming too." When a few people came in, the others looked at each other and couldn't help but discuss in a low voice. Chen Jui overturned the scene of plagiarism, and Mr. Zhang recognized his granddaughter before dinner. It's almost too much to eat. This morning, my head is pounding like a train passing by. How many surprises do we have in this program? What's certain is that Mr. Zhang will definitely not mistake his granddaughter for anything. That little assistant named Anan is going to reach the sky in one step. I would have shouted out the word grandpa a long time ago. That's Mr. Zhang. What's there to be so reserved about? Teacher Zhang is also a hero. If she hadn't brought such a little assistant, Mr. Zhang would never have seen him. The old man and the young man were not from the same world before. I was talking about why Mr. Zhang suddenly called Teacher Zhang and assistant, and in a way when we were recording the program yesterday I still thought it was strange at the time, but now I finally understand. Then Mr. Zhang suddenly decided to be a reviewer today. Isn't it also because of assistant Anan? Listening to what you said, it's really possible when I think about it. The key is that not only Teacher Zhang, but also her little assistant, we didn't notice anything strange at all. It's really stable. Haha, 2, I would never be able to keep calm. Chen Weiwen listened to the discussion of the staff of his program team while casting his eyes on the back figures walking in front. The things that puzzled him yesterday and today were finally answered. It's just that he originally guessed it was because of Zhang Lingzi, but he didn't expect that the source was the taciturn little assistant beside her who only works silently. This program of his is really much more exciting than what he originally planned. Jing Huai was also looking at the figures from behind, with some uncontrollable emotion flashing across his face. Although judging from the current progress, there are some twists and turns in confirming that Zhang Lingzi and he are a couple. Fortunately, except for the people around him and Zhang Lingzi, most of the general public on the internet still believe it. After all, this hot search is controlled by Su Qingmei's team. Therefore, even if he suffered some embarrassment in the morning, he never thought of giving up the business. Now, seeing with his own eyes that Mr. Zhang called the assistant beside Zhang Lingzi his granddaughter, he only felt his heart become a little hotter. Although Mr. Zhang is from the calligraphy and painting circle, he has a high social status and is highly respected by big shots whether they are really elegant or fake. If there is a chance to make friends with him, everyone in any circle will think highly of him. However, what worried him was that after a whole morning of unobtrusive observation, Mr. Shen seemed to have a close relationship with Zhang Lingzi. Could it be that you have the same thoughts as him? Comparing himself with this person, it is not that he belittles himself, but he always feels a little hung up. I just hope that the relationship between the two people is just ordinary friends. Su Qingmei glanced at the changing expressions on his face as she walked past Jing Huai, and couldn't help but chuckle. Hearing the sound, Jing Huai turned his head and looked over, only to meet her somewhat meaningful eyes. The two of them walked into the canteen one after another. After Su Qingmei found a quiet corner to sit down, Jing Huai followed her lead and sat in a nearby seat. It seems like you don't want to give up taking the shortcut of Zhang Lingzi. I can't waste this good opportunity that you gave me, Sister Su. In this case, let's cooperate. Jing Huai paused while cutting the steak. How to cooperate? My next target is Shen Yunqing, and your target is Zhang Lingzi, but they are each other's obstacles to us. Only by removing the obstacles first can you and I achieve what we want. Jing Huai looked down at the plate in front of him. After the steak was cut, pink blood flowed out, and it looked very tempting. Just like the suggestion Su Qingmei just made. He was silent for a moment, then took a piece of steak and put it into his mouth. While chewing, he whispered softly, "Deal." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 346. Chapter 346 I have a grandmother and a mother. 6 people were sitting around the dining table. The table is filled with food of all kinds of tastes. Basically, Zhang Nashuan estimated the food that the little girl would like and the food that his little daughter liked to eat before she was alive, and brought it back and put it on the table. Li Wangxuan also noticed it from the sidelines, but saw that the teacher was in high spirits and seemed to be enjoying it, so she said nothing. The food in this cafeteria looks pretty good, but it's definitely not as good as the ones in your aunt's restaurant. When the time comes to officially recognize you, Grandpa will take you to their restaurant to try it. Li Wangxuan also knew the restaurant owned by the teacher's daughter-in-law, and she had eaten there several times. That's private cooking, and this canteen is really incomparable. Su Ling'an looked at the plate of sweet and sour pork ribs placed in front of her. She raised her head and met the old man's enthusiastic and eager eyes. After politely thanking her, she held the chopsticks in her hand and hesitated whether to take a piece. But not to mention that she really has no appetite now, just looking at this dish. Just when she made up her mind to pick it up, The plate in front of her was smoothly and naturally changed with another plate by a hand stretched out from the side. What she replaced was the stir-fried yam she likes to eat. Zhang Lingzi changed the dishes in front of Su Linggan, and then raised her eyes to meet Mr. Zhang's eyes, and likes to eat lighter food. Su Linggan nodded subconsciously. The smile on Zhang Nashuan's face paused slightly, and he looked at Su Linggan with some apology, and explained, "Your mother has liked sweet and sour dishes since she was a child, and I thought you would like it too. It's okay, you can eat whatever you want. Don't worry about Grandpa forcing you to eat dishes you don't like." "Thank you," Su Linggan said as he picked up a piece of yam and put it in his mouth. "It's just that the dishes that I liked quite a lot in the past are now being eaten with so much attention, and I can't taste them anymore." Li Wangsuan saw that the atmosphere at the table was a bit condensed, and quickly helped to smooth things over. "When I was at the door just now, I was stunned when I heard the teacher call Anan my granddaughter. What on earth is going on? Anan is the daughter of junior sister An Yi." "Yes," Zhang Nashuan nodded lightly, "I only found out after she left, when Madame cleaned up her bedroom and found a pregnancy test sheet in the pocket of a dress. I originally thought, unexpectedly." Li Wangsuan couldn't help but take a deep breath, suppressing her surprise. She had only heard about the incident back then, but was not particularly clear about it. In addition, the people around her who knew about the matter kept silent and did not dare to discuss it further because they were concerned about the teacher's always fiery and irresponsible temper. To be honest, even the voice and smile of the younger junior sister Zhang Enyi were blurred. After all, almost 20 years had passed. How can I imagine that my junior sister actually left behind a child who is alive and has grown up healthily? Moreover, nearly 20 years later, the grandfather and grandson met by chance. Indeed, I have to say that it is a blessing in disguise. This is a good thing. If Master Guangxia knows about it, she will definitely be very happy. Yes, I will burn incense for her when I get back and tell her about this." Before the results of the paternity test came out, he thought about saying it, but he held it back. Afraid of any eventuality, the joy will be in vain. Now that he's better, he finally has an explanation for his wife who left with regrets before her death. Li Wangsuan looked at the little girl who was eating quietly. Her eyes couldn't help but look a little nostalgic, and she suddenly remembered something. "Wait a minute, if I remember An's age correctly, she should be around 18 or 10 this year. You're 9 years old, are you no longer in school?" As she spoke, she looked at Zhang Lingzi with a rare disapproval in her eyes. "This age is really a bit young. Normally, I should have just graduated from high school. But now this child is here as Zhang Lingzi's assistant. As far as she knows, the life of a celebrity assistant is not easy. It is a bit stressful for an 18 or 19-year-old child." This time before Zhang Lingzi could speak, Su Linggan quickly put down his chopsticks and explained, "I'm in school. I just finished the college entrance examination this year and it's summer vacation now." As he spoke, he subconsciously tilted his head and smiled at his sister who was sitting next to him, and continued, "Some time ago, my grandmother and I went to visit my sister's class. At that time, the director of my sister's crew said that he had a role that was lacking. I think I was quite suitable, so I joined the group and filmed with my sister for a while. This time my sister came to record the show, and I thought it was fun, so I followed her. Sister Zheng Zheng is my sister's official assistant, so I came along to join in the fun." Li Wangsuan's face softened and she nodded in agreement. "That's good. It's good to experience more life during the holiday and meet people." Su Lingyan agreed with this, and his face was full of seriousness. "I think so too. It's just that this life experience brought a bit of surprise." Zhang Nashuan originally planned to care about his granddaughter's growth, but was overtaken by a student's words. He was relieved to hear his granddaughter's explanation, but then he thought of the grandmother mentioned in the child's words, and his heart shrank. The grandmother the child spoke of was definitely not his deceased wife, but the grandmother who had raised his granddaughter over the years. "Anan, can you tell me, Grandpa, what do you do at your foster parents' house?" The other party raised his granddaughter so well and taught her to be sensible and polite. It was obvious that he put his heart into it. He couldn't be too grateful. So he prepared to get to know each other in advance. When the two families recognized each other, if there was anyone on his side who could help, he would lend a hand. Zhang Lingzi was originally picking out the fish bones from the piece of fish she had just picked up. She thought that if nothing else happened, the meal would be quite time-consuming. In addition, she was not the protagonist but was there to pressure one of the protagonists, so she only needed to arrange it. Just eat quietly and leisurely. It wasn't until she heard Mr. Zhang ask this question that she raised her head and glanced at the old man opposite, and then looked at Su Ling'an sitting next to her. Su Ling'an met her sister's gaze and gave her a reassuring smile. Then she put down her chopsticks and said calmly, "I don't have a father, and my mother disappeared when I was very young. My grandma raised me." This answer made both Zhang Nashuan and Li Wangsuan couldn't help but be stunned. Such a family situation was something they never expected. They think that if they can raise a child who is not their biological child to be like an, even if they are not a wealthy family, they will be able to have a family that does not have to worry about food, clothing, and children. As it turned out, the reality was not far from what they thought. It was simply the opposite. Missing, how could a good gentleman disappear? Su Ling'an remembers this particularly clearly. "One day, my mother went out to play as usual. In the past, she would go home after playing enough, and grandma was used to not following her. But after that time, she never came back. My grandma and I have searched all over the area and can't find it." He paused and said, "I'm still looking for it." Li Wangsuan was the first to hear the unusualness in these words, "Playing. Well, my mother only has the mental capacity of 6 or 7 years old, but she picked me up and took me home and loves me very much. She remembers things early because there is only one adult in the family. So she remembered very clearly that although her mother had the body of an adult and the head of a child, she always protected her unconditionally in front of her." Li Wangsuan couldn't help but raise her hand to cover her mouth, turned her head to look at the teacher, and saw that the teacher's eyes were a little red at the moment. It is not difficult for them to imagine what kind of family this is. Grandma is old, and my mother looks like an adult but is no different from a child. The key is that she has been missing for so long. You don't need to think about what would happen to an adult with such defects if she lives outside. How can you be carefree when you grow up in such a family? The sufferings in the world are not the same, because everyone has his own suffering. But if you hadn't heard about it with your own ears, you wouldn't have imagined how painful it could be. And it's Grandpa who can't help you. Over the years, you..." Su Ling'an could see that her newly recognized grandpa wanted to comfort her, but she really didn't need comfort. For the first time, he rudely interrupted the other party before she could say anything. "No, you don't need to apologize to me. Grandma is very good, mother is also very good, I love them very much, and I have always lived a happy life." After hearing what she said, Li Wangsuan finally couldn't help but stand up, tilted her head and sniffed, "I'll go get some more food." She has always been a more emotional person, and she really couldn't hold it anymore. When she returned to her seat with a plate of carefully selected light dishes, she happened to see Zhang Ye hurried over with a document bag. Zhang Ye didn't bother to say hello to other people present. After standing still, he immediately handed over the document bag in his hand. "Uncle, this is the appraisal report. I got it and opened it to confirm. Thank you for your hard work. Let's sit down and have a rest first." Zhang Nashuan took the document bag and untied the seal on the bag with trembling fingers. When he saw the 5 nines in bold and enlarged size displayed in the column of identification results, he immediately bit it. He clenched his teeth and managed to control his surging emotions. "Anan, this is the paternity test result of you and your mother, please take a look at it too. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 347. Even though he had already guessed what would appear on the appraisal certificate, Su Lingyan still couldn't help being shocked when he saw the relationship between biological mother and daughter shown on it. She still remembers that when she was a child and had just become sensible, she saw that all the children around her own age were accompanied by their parents. She was confused and asked her grandmother why she was the only one not with them. At that time, Grandma didn't look at her and just find excuses to deal with her when she was young. Instead, she answered seriously, because An's parents are a bit stupid and accidentally got lost. Grandma and the current mother have an opportunity to grow up with An. She has a pair of stupid parents who accidentally got lost. This knowledge accompanied her in the few years when she was just sensible but still a little ignorant. Until she started going to school and learned more and more, she already knew that it was her grandmother's white lie, so she never asked this question again. But when she dreamed back at midnight, did she really not think about everything about her biological parents? It's not because of attachment or longing, but because I'm really curious. What would his biological parents be like? Why did he choose to give birth to her and not want her in the first place? Perhaps, there is still a little bit of unwillingness. She is sensible, not naughty, and excels in academics. She strives to do her best in both study and life. Her grandmother and neighbors always say that she is the most lovable child, but she is chosen by the two closest blood relatives in the world. I lost it personally. Now, she finally learned the news about her biological mother and met her biological mother's father. However, she was also told that the person who lost her was no longer around. I want to know why she disappeared back then. Everyone sitting around the table could tell who she was talking about. Li Wangxuan's face couldn't help but change, and she looked at the teacher with some worry. Now that the paternity test results have come out, An's child has been confirmed to be the biological daughter of the younger junior sister. The thing about the junior sister back then must be told to this child. However, mentioning this past incident again after so many years will undoubtedly open up the scars in the teacher's heart again. Even if the child An knows the truth about that year, it is not certain that he will hate the teacher because of it. Do you really want to tell the truth? Zhang Nashuan gently shook his head at Li Wangxuan, who looked over with a worried look, indicating that she didn't have to worry. He was mentally prepared. He smiled reassuringly at his granddaughter, whose identity was completely confirmed in front of him, and suppressed the sadness that spread in his heart. This matter is a long story, and this is not the place to talk about it. When the program is over, would you like to go back to the museum with Grandpa? Grandpa wants to accompany your grandma and you, and we will talk about this matter then. Su Lingyan couldn't help but pursed her lips. She originally planned to tell her sister to go home after the program was over. Now that the paternity test has come out, there is no time for her to continue to worry about it. She was afraid that she couldn't explain clearly on the phone. Besides, this matter would definitely make her grandma's emotions fluctuate greatly, so it would be safer for her to go home and see her grandma face to face. But facing the eager and expectant eyes of the old man in front of me, who had transformed from a stranger to a grandpa, I felt a little unable to say any words of rejection. It's a pity that I can't split myself in half and use it. Upon seeing this, Zhang Lingzi put her hand on Su Lingyan's back without leaving a trace, supported her, and said, "Go if you want to, and go home if you don't want to." She, Zhang Lingzi's sister, just follows her heart and has nothing to worry about. The heat from the palm of his back flowed to his limbs through a thin layer of fabric. Su Lingyan couldn't help but sit up straighter and took a deep breath. I still want to go back and see you first, Grandma, please tell her about this. Also, can I take the paternity test report first? With this report, it will be more convincing, otherwise Grandma may think that she has been deceived. That's fine, seeing that his granddaughter obviously paid more attention to the relatives on the other side who raised her. Zhang Nashuan felt a little sad, but also a little relieved. In the end, he could only nodded with a complicated mood. I should tell that grandmother of yours. How about grandpa going back with you? I just want to thank her in person. Su Ling'an was startled by the suggestion. He came back to his senses and waved his hand quickly. No, don't go to such trouble first. I'll go back and let grandma be mentally prepared. If you come too, it will be too sudden. She has been in poor health in the past 2 years. Some are not very good and cannot withstand too much stimulation. Anan is still thoughtful. Zhang Nashuan also realized that he was too impatient. It's because I, an old man, didn't think well. Then wait, grandma will be willing to meet with me anytime. I'll be waiting for you at any time. Not to mention that he is currently taking care of his old age and there is nothing important to do. Even if other things come up now, the matter of finding his lost granddaughter will not be more important. I will tell grandma. Su Ling'an also knew very well that the meeting, sooner or later, depended on her grandmother's wishes, but it was inevitable. In the end, only Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing, the two people who helped to loot the array, were 70 full from this lunch. As for the others, although they didn't eat a few mouthfuls at all, they were so shocked that they didn't feel hungry at all when they left the dinner table. Coming out of the cafeteria and walking towards the elevator, Zhang Lingzi called Su Ling'an as she passed by the terrace. Anan, now that the recording of the program has come to an end, I still have Zheng Zheng here. How about you go back to grandma directly now? Lu Zhengzheng, who also stopped, nodded repeatedly when he heard the words, yes, I can definitely be busy. Besides, Mr. Shen is here, Anan, just feel free to go back. Even though she didn't sit at the same table as Sister Zixi and the others during the meal, she sat nearby and listened to all the conversations at the dinner table. She still had a good idea of the importance. Besides, Anan had been helping her voluntarily these past few days. Then I'll go back first. Well, Zhang Lingzi smiled and touched her hair and told her, be careful on the road and call me anytime if you need anything. If you can't get through, I'll call you Sister Zhengzheng. Ah, yes, you also know that my mobile phone is on 24 hours a day. Although Zhang Nashuan was walking in front, he had been silently paying attention to his newly recovered granddaughter. When he heard Zhang Lingzi calling someone to stop him, when he caught up with him again, his granddaughter stopped following him. After hesitating for a moment, he couldn't help but ask, Anan, are you going back to see her grandma now? Well, I'm back home, Zhang Lingzi nodded. Since we started filming together, we haven't seen each other for a while, and now we can spend more time together when we go back. One is going home, and the other is grandparents and grandsons. Thinking about the fact that Anan's child still hasn't called her grandpa yet, I feel a little sad for some reason. Zhang Nashuan couldn't help but glance at Zhang Lingzi's face, and for a moment he couldn't tell whether the girl did it on purpose or not. Zhang Lingzi, although it was not intentional, it was not just unintentional. Back in the recording room, Zhang Lingzi saw the makeup artist running towards her with tools to touch up her makeup, and she stopped in her tracks. When she saw the makeup artist taking out lipstick and preparing to touch up her lip makeup, she raised her hand and gestured, wait for me to drink some water. As soon as he finished speaking, a cup of tea soaked with a few jasmine flowers was handed to him. Zhang Lingzi turned her head and looked over, followed the hand holding the disposable paper cup to the person holding the cup, and finally landed on the half of the face that was not covered by the mask and was gentle and somewhat deliberate. Your face doesn't hurt anymore. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 348. With the foreword success, Jing Huai, who was well prepared and took the opportunity to run over to show his courtesy, could not control his expression and froze. The next second, just as he took out the water glass from the bag, he looked up and saw someone dared to compete with him for work. Lu Zhengzheng unceremoniously bumped his shoulders to the side, snorted coldly with a look of dissatisfaction on his face, the assistant is still here, Teacher Jing, you think I am invisible. After saying that, he handed over the water glass and looked at the few shriveled and unbewet jasmine flowers in the disposable paper cup in Jing Hui's hand with disgust. This was simply perfunctory, visible to the naked eye. I really think our Sister Zixi has some tea. Drink them all. Sister Zixi always only likes the tea I make, so I'd better keep this jasmine tea scenery for myself. They don't care about it? Zhang Lingzi swallowed the honey green tea that barely tasted good in her mouth, and couldn't help but glance sideways when she heard the words. The last words don't need to be so absolute. But now it's for Jing Hui, so she doesn't care. Jing Hui almost spilled the water in his cup due to the bump from Lu Zhengzheng just now. Then he heard Lu Zhengzheng's sarcasm, and he almost couldn't maintain his gentle mask for a moment. It wasn't until he saw the person standing in the corner giving him an okay gesture that he felt a little more relaxed. He put the cup in Zhang Lingzi's hand in a good-tempered manner, and insisted on doing the whole thing when acting. You continue to put on makeup, I'll go over there first. Zhang Lingzi didn't even look at him. Lu Zhengzheng, on the other hand, was much more obvious. He rolled his eyes several times while looking at Jing Hui's back. After the makeup artist finished applying makeup and left with tools, he finally couldn't help but complain in a low voice, Sister Zixi, he's like this. What do you mean? Do you really want to rely on you? What good can it do to him by showing off so shamelessly? Zhang Lingzi glanced at the cup of jasmine tea in her hand that was no longer steaming, then glanced around the corner, noticing a figure leaving in a hurry, with a slightly cold look in her eyes, ambition. As early as when she was recording the program in the morning, she noticed that this person was looking at Li Wangxuan sitting in the critic's seat several times without any trace. When Li Wangxuan came to the stage to comment on the work, this person even secretly wanted to go next to her. Minato. When she was talking to Li Wangxuan, she twice wanted to find an opportunity to intervene and say hello to Li Wangxuan to make her look familiar, but no one wanted to pay attention to Jing at that time. She looked on with cold eyes. This morning she had become as clear as a mirror. Sure enough, he wanted to get close to Li Wangxuan through her, or to get close to Li Wangxuan's son Shichen Grui through Li Wangxuan. As for the purpose, it is obvious. It is no surprise that this person knew about Zhang Nashuan's calling An's granddaughter earlier, and he probably had more calculations in his mind. It is really a crooked door with a belly, and his eyes can't wait to grow on your head, and you don't know which onion you count on. If someone like this had been in her previous life, she would have dared to use her as a raft, but was so clumsy that no one would look at her at all. When she noticed, the grass on the grave had grown taller. Jing Hui should really thank the current society for allowing him to live such a good life. When Lu Zhengzheng heard this metaphor, he nodded in agreement. The wolf's ambition is obvious. Sister Zixi, you are so smart, have you noticed something? Zhang Lingzi just nodded towards her. Well, let's talk about it when we get back. Lu Zhengzheng quickly looked around. Everyone who had finished lunch was coming back one after another. It was indeed not the place to discuss this matter. He blinked and covered his mouth to show that he would never talk too much. But after holding it in for a while, she remembered something very important again. By the way, Sister Zixi, have you told Mr. Shen about the hot search? Mr. Shen must not misunderstand this matter. Not yet, Zhang Lingzi shook her head slightly. Seeing how worried the girl was about her, she said amusedly, but if nothing else, he should already know. Not mentioning whether Jing deliberately publicized this in the commentator's dressing room before recording the program, just look at the way Shen Yunqing occasionally glanced at Jing Hui during the morning recording, and how it seemed to everyone that she didn't mean it but she could. It could be seen that it was indeed a deliberate targeting. She really didn't believe that Shen Yunqing had no idea about the hot search. Lu Zhengzheng looked at the still unhurried face in front of him and wished he could go over and drag the person over. Then you have to find a chance to explain to Mr. Shen quickly. This kind of thing cannot be delayed. However, after thinking about it after urging her, she really couldn't blame Sister Zixi. In fact, what happened this morning was simply dizzying. How can I have time to explain to Mr. Shen alone? Don't worry, he won't believe it, and based on her understanding of Shen Yunqing, someone might have already taken action after learning about the hot search. However, this matter must be said with one's own mouth. Lu Zhengzheng still feels that no matter how much we trust each other, we should always communicate well on this kind of matter. She was surfing the internet and saw that many couples who were originally in love died because they did not communicate well. Zhang Lingzi had no choice but to express her plan first. I will communicate with him after the recording of the program is completed. It's not that she went out of her way to explain that she had no relationship with Jing Huai. In her opinion, this was something that didn't need to be explained at all. Everyone in the world may doubt the authenticity of this hot search, except Shen Yunqing. Based on her understanding of the relationship between monarch and minister for decades in her previous life, she was even sure that Shen Yunqing had definitely done something after learning about the hot search, and was ready to help her get revenge. After all, this is what she wants to do next. Now that Jing Huai's purpose is determined, how could she not fight back? Putting up with this guy for a second longer is testing her patience. And Shen Yunqing also knew her well enough. In addition, she also wanted to find another person involved to confirm the dream she had last night. Lu Zhengzheng was finally relieved. She is really worried about the love between her sister Zixi and Mr. Shen. It's worth giving yourself a quiet pat on the back. Asterisk. As soon as Jing Huai glanced at Su Qingmei without leaving any trace, which hinted that he had already figured it out, his scalp suddenly felt cold. Looking over subconsciously, he met a pair of eyes that showed no emotion at all. With just one glance, he couldn't wait to look away. Looking down, he saw that the palm he had just opened had become wet. It's okay. The person just now was very hidden and separated by so many people. He will definitely not be discovered. After silently comforting himself, he managed to calm down and walk to the spot where he had stopped when the recording was interrupted. Su Qingmei didn't notice anything. Although she and Jing Huai had just reached a cooperation at noon, time was tight. After recording the program, everyone would be separated. No matter how many means she had, she was limited by this, so she could only choose simple and crude method. Jing Huai's side moved quickly enough, and her side was next. Just as she was about to pass by Shen Yunqing, she turned the ring on her hand. Suddenly, a small electric current penetrated her body, causing her to lose her balance. The high heels under her feet suddenly buckled, and she was about to follow the instructions. Calculate the correct angle and turn it sideways and forward. Shen Yunqing turned her head to talk to Shen Heshan when she noticed a sudden strong and pungent fragrance. She raised her eyes and saw a pair of faces that were looking pale and pale. She was immediately pulled aside before she could react. Shen Heshan quickly took a step back. Boom! There was a muffled sound, and the originally noisy stage and people fell silent instantly. Small theater. After reacting, Shen Heshan couldn't help but burst into tears. My cousin really still loves me, and he didn't forget to hold me in his arms even when he was avoiding such a dangerous disaster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 349. Chapter 349, Everyone calls him a good guy. When her right elbow and knee came into heavy contact with the hard stage floor beneath her feet, Su Qingmei was still in shock and could not react. It wasn't until these two sharp pains reached her nerve endings that she was sure that she had flung herself in the air and fell on the stage in full view of everyone. For a moment, Su Qingmei's mind went blank. She chose to adopt this plan based on her understanding of Shen Yunqing in the past 3 days. He is a serious man, and can even be said to be an extremely serious gentleman. He is also very determined, so 99% of the measures that can be taken against ordinary men will be of no use to this man. So she didn't even consider fainting this time, and used electric current to stimulate the effect of a real fall. She was determined that this way, whenever someone saw someone about to fall in front of them, people would subconsciously reach out to help them. As long as there is such a chance of contact, she can take the opportunity to leave a wound on Shen Yunqing's hand or arm, and the subsequent operations can proceed smoothly. But she never expected that this person would just not reach out to help him, but he would actually take a step back without hesitation. Withdrawal. Is this treating her as a plague? By the time Su Qingmei gritted her teeth and managed to sit up, her face was already flushed red, and the look she looked at Shen Yunqing was filled with substantial disbelief and sadness. Even though he didn't say a word, anyone who saw this look could see the meaning behind his eyes at this moment. The eyes of a movie queen are not expressive enough. Immediately, a few eyes looked at Shen Yunqing with a hint of reproach. The man being looked at had a calm expression and was not moved at all. "Su, Teacher Su, are you okay? Where are the people from the medical team? Come and take a look." Jing Huai was the first to rush forward and reach out to help Su Qingmei, feeling panicked in his heart at the same time. Su Qingmei only asked him to create intimate scenes with Zhang Lingzi, even if it was to borrow a seat. But before I told him what to do next, my actions here encountered Waterloo. How to proceed with the next plan? Su Qingmei pretended not to see the panic in Jing Huai's eyes, and slowly stood up using her strength, with a strong smile on her face. "It's okay, it's just a little scratch." Assistant Su Qingmei's position was a bit far away, and she arrived almost at the same time as the medical team. "Sister Su, let's deal with it briefly before going to the hospital. I suggest that the recording be paused." Chen Weiwen neither nodded nor shook his head. He was still a little confused now. The stage was not slippery. Why did Su Qingmei, who had always been very capable in business, fall so suddenly? Let's check first. The medical staff invited by our program team are also very capable professional doctors. I originally thought Mr. Shen was a very gentlemanly person. Assistant Su Qingmei held Su Qingmei's arm and looked at Shen Yunqing angrily. "Don't you think what you just did was a bit too much?" Shen Yunqing looked back expressionlessly, with a calm tone as if he was not affected by the situation in front of him at all, and responded calmly, "Then you think you are wrong." Everyone. "Good guy." Everyone who heard this response shouted in their hearts, "Good guy." Sorry, reflex, the response they originally thought they would hear, was simply weak compared to what they heard now. Mr. Shen is so brave to say it in front of so many people. Assistant Su Qingmei was also stupefied by these words, and her face couldn't be controlled and looked a little ugly. Fortunately, after the medical staff conducted some examinations, the results came out quickly. Su Qingmei's arms and knees were only slightly red and swollen due to scratches, and there were no problems with the bones. That is to the extent that you do not need to be sent to the hospital. This way, there is no need to pause the program recording. A staff member brought a chair for Su Qingmei to sit down. Jing Huai let go of the hand holding her, hesitated for a moment before leaving, but couldn't help but asked angrily, "What should we do next?" Although the wound was treated, it still hurt a lot. Su Qingmei was also very irritable. She gritted her teeth and glanced in the direction of Shen Yunqing, but saw that the other party didn't pay attention to her at all. Her fingers on the armrest of the chair were fierce. The ground was so tight that he almost broke his long, well-manicured nails. With a cold face, he scolded, "What's the rush? She has already paid such a heavy price, but if she still falls short in the end, she will be more unwilling than anyone else. Okay. Jinghui didn't dare to say anything when he saw this. Okay, I'll wait for your instructions. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing were separated by Shen Heshan and Qian Yaya, but this did not hinder the eye contact between the two. Is Su Qingmei acting up again? No surprise, it should be. There is probably something going on between her and Jinghui. Someone just deliberately found an angle to take a secret photo. I've also noticed that, be careful over there, Su Qingmei probably won't let it go. I will be careful. Zhang Lingzi had experienced countless assassinations in his previous life, and Shen Yunqing, the prime minister, was no less generous. Even if it is food and water that are always under their noses, they will be very careful, let alone letting people get close to them. Not to mention that Su Qingmei is also related to the weird organization that Mei Shuiqing belongs to. Who knows what unknown methods this person may have in private. I would rather be called ungraceful. Your own safety is the most important thing. The audience in the audience also held two views on what Shen Yunqing did just now. A group of people felt that this move was too much to avoid suspicion, and instead lost their grace. The other group of people were a little suspicious of Su Qingmei's sudden fall. Although it didn't look like a fake fall, after all, they all heard the sound, but you walked very steadily when you passed by others. Why? But when I walked up to Mr. Shen, I felt unsteady. Had it been anyone else on the stage, they wouldn't have had this suspicion. While the show had just resumed recording, everyone held their own opinions and started talking about it. Qian Yuchain naturally did not participate in the discussion, but she agreed with everyone's second point of view. Whether she had preconceptions or believed in Mr. Shen's character, she was not very impressed with Su Qingmei, a female star who shamelessly came to be a reviewer even though she clearly didn't understand painting. If she really wanted to get into trouble with Mr. Shen and threw him so hard, she could only say, cruel enough and willing enough. Su Qingmei managed to calm down her mood, and when she faced the audience again, she showed a face that was trying to endure the pain but was silently strong. She knows how to use her strengths. Suddenly won a lot of pity looks. But once Zhang Nashuan started to comment on other people's works, not many people paid attention to her. I regret not being able to include yesterday's blue waves in the museum. I wonder if Ms. Zhang is willing to part with today's mountains and rivers. Hearing what Mr. Zhang said, everyone in the audience was a little confused. Bai Bo Wanxiang, is it the Bai Bo Wanxiang I know? Who else could it be if it wasn't blue waves and everything? After the great painter Xian Weiyun, who else dares to name his work Blue Waves and Everything? By the way, does Mr. Zhang mean what I understand by what he said? Is he going to take Zhang Lingzi's works into his private museum? I just want to know what the level of Mr. Zhang's works in the world of calligraphy and painting is like if they can be included in his private museum. It's hard to say, but if you have the chance, you should know it by visiting Mr. Zhang's private museum. This is no nonsense. Who doesn't know that Mr. Zhang's museum visiting quota is the most difficult to apply for? Zhang Lingzi met Zhang Nashuan's looking eyes and said, "Thanks to Mr. Zhang for your appreciation. It was just a painting that took 2 hours to complete, and it was not her favorite animal series. Since the other party intends to show kindness, she should do this. She will definitely not suffer anyway." Everyone looked at Mr. Zhang's happy expression after getting the work, and felt a lot of emotion in their hearts. Zhang Lingzi has fulfilled my lifelong wish. I have never dreamed that my work would be noticed by Mr. Zhang. Then you'd better have a good dream, there's everything in your dreams. Jinghui looked away from the mountains and rivers and couldn't help but look in the direction of Su Qingmei. At first he just wanted to take advantage of Zhang Lingzi, but now seeing that she is getting closer to Li Wangsuan and gaining Zhang Nashuan's admiration, he really wants to be bound to Zhang Lingzi. However, thinking about Zhang Lingzi's indifference and lack of pretentiousness towards him, he could only hope that Su Qingmei's plan would go smoothly. There is a vague and inexplicable feeling of ominous premonition. He didn't have to wait too long before this premonition became a reality. Before Su Qingmei's next instructions came, he received a precise blow from Mr. Zhang. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 350. Chapter 350, Public Execution. Did Su Yinghao break her brain? I don't know whether it was because he was in a good mood or because he was concerned about the large number of spectators at the scene. Zhang Nashuan's comments to the guests later were obviously much gentler than yesterday, which made the guests feel relieved. Until he reached the last piece of review, he glanced at it a few times, turned to the host and nodded, "I'm done reviewing." Moderator, here, Mr. Zhang, here is another one. What, this is not a child's graffiti, does it need to be criticized? Okay, let's leave it at that. Host. She thought that this guy wasn't going to talk venom today, but she didn't expect that he would leave it until the end. Okay, you are authoritative and you are right. She glanced at Jing Huai, whose face was really not good looking after being publicly executed again, and could only make peace with it with a dry laugh. Thank you to the reviewers and teachers for their wonderful comments to our 7 guests. Thank you too. I would like to thank the guests for their dedicated performances, and I would also like to thank the audience for their patience. After a pause, she raised her hand and gestured to the big screen next to her. Now, the home participation time for audience friends has begun. Please pick up the scorer in your hands and rate the 7 works on site. The program team is here based on everyone's ratings. We will provide generous bonuses to guests who have traveled a long way and worked hard to participate in the show. Now, please rate your favorite works. The scoring time will be 3 minutes, and the countdown will begin. As the buttons on the scorer are pressed one by one, the score of each work also appears on the big screen in real time. It's still hard to tell who is first, but the last one is pretty sure at this point. After finishing the score, Qian Yihan looked up at the big screen. First he nodded with satisfaction at Qian Yi's score, then glanced at the one with the lowest ranking, and finally looked at Jing Huai, who was wearing a mask, and said silently in his heart, "As for wearing a mask, I don't know if it was a deliberate design, but now it seems that I am quite self-aware. It doesn't matter if you look good or not, the key is to cover up your shame." The 3-minute timer ended, and the final ranking was no surprise. Jing Huai is well deserved to be the last one. Zhang Lingzi leads Lin Yo by 2 points and reaches the top spot. Su Yi is 3 points ahead of Shen and Chen, ranking third. Qian Yaya and Lu Sen clenched their fists even more tightly, and the difference between them was only 1 point. Generally speaking, the scores of the top 6 are all very tight, and when they get to Jing Huai, they drop off a cliff. At this time, let alone Jing Huai, he almost couldn't maintain his composure. Even Su Qingmei's smile became a little stiff. Others don't know it, but director Chen Weiwen knows very well that she brought Jing Huai into the program through her mouth. At the beginning, she vowed that Jing Huai was taught by a famous teacher, that she was very good at writing and painting, and that she would never hold back the program team. But now, this is simply a public execution. She is so angry, she really can't hold up the wall with mud. Lu Zhengzheng was very happy to hear the score. Now I want to ask someone if he is embarrassed. She didn't hear any echo from the side. She turned around and saw the empty bench, and then she remembered that Anan should have been home by now. It's okay, I should be able to see the scene on TV by then. The voice of the host on the stage came again. Thank you all for your enthusiastic scores. The scores are very tight. It seems that the works of our guests in this issue are widely loved. Listening to some narrow-minded laughter from the audience, the host continued to maintain a professional smile without changing his expression. Actually, at the beginning of the recording of this episode, the program team received a lot of excellent works for registration. It's just that it is convenient to move them all into the program, so the program team finally decided to display all these works one by one in the exhibition hall set up next door. If you want to appreciate other registered works after the recording is over, you can go and enjoy them on your own. Now that the program has come to an end, I have also set up a new link to voluntarily participate in the interaction. The host winked at everyone. We have specially selected the entries of the 7 guests. I will not announce which work belongs to which guest. Everyone can enthusiastically guess, but each person only has one chance, and the program team will give you a small gift. As soon as the words fell, many people in the audience rushed to raise their arms. Myself, Here I go, I like interaction the most, but can you tell me first what kind of gift you will get if you guess correctly? Qian Yucheng also raised her hand, and when the camera moved to her side, she quickly asked loudly, "Can I ask for the gift I want, such as a calligraphy treasure for a certain guest?" Standing on the stage, Qian Yaya couldn't help but raise her hands to cover her face. Her aunt's thoughts are so obvious. There were 7 works in total, and they were quickly brought to the stage by 7 hostesses in uniform costumes. Qian Yuchen took a quick look and recognized the painting of his niece. But this is only one chance for everyone, and she is not going to waste it on this known answer. Her eyes quickly moved to the remaining 6 paintings. Which painting will be Zhang Lingzi's work? Looking at the mountain and river picture in front of her, she guessed that Zhang Lingzi was better at landscape painting. Among these 7 works, excluding her niece's, the remaining 3 were all landscape paintings. The ones that can be sent for registration are naturally the guests' recent masterpieces. It's really hard to identify this time. The key is if you accidentally guess wrong, there will be no second chance. When Zhang Lingzi heard someone once again point to one of the landscape paintings and said it was painted by him, Zhang Lingzi couldn't help but raise her forehead. Several people raised their hands to guess her painting Cat and Goose War, but no one guessed that it was painted by her. Life is really as lonely as snow. Fortunately, there are loopholes that can be picked up in this betting session, but they are not easy to pick up. For example, if you only guess one of the works, if 7 people each say the name of a guest, one of them will always get it right. But there are really not 7 people here who can only guess correctly if there are 7 people present. You must know that there are only 7 small gifts in total. The competition is quite fierce. What is cooperation? They do not know. By the way, we have 3 reviewers on site who don't know the specific owner of the work. Those who are interested can take a guess. After the host said this, there were 3 more competitors. Shen Yunqing looked in the direction of Zhang Lingzi and asked with his eyes, "Can I cheat?" Zhang Lingzi had integrity written all over her face, "No." After a pause, he made another compromise, "If no one guesses it in the end, let him cheat a little." Shen Yunqing, got it? There are 50 in total, no, minus Chen Ju who left in embarrassment before. There are 49 spectators left. However, as everyone was divided and everyone was a competitor, everyone guessed until the end. There were 2 works left and no one could guess who the correct author was. Qian Yucheng also guessed wrong and sat back down full of regret. Now what's left is a full 50% probability. Even the host did not expect this result. He could only look in the direction of the commentators for help. Actually, the answer is almost revealed. Do you want the 3 commentators to take a guess? Su Qingmei was in no mood, and she didn't like the small gifts from the program crew. She just wanted to say her name casually. However, before she could speak, she heard a determined voice coming from not far away, "Zhang Lingzi, Cat and Goose War." The host couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "Congratulations, Mr. Shen, you guessed it right." Qian Yihan, who was still immersed in regret in the audience. "I thought you were painting landscapes, but you painted me 2 little animals with feathers and fur flying around." How could she imagine this? Also, hearing Mr. Shen's confident tone, could it be possible that he had guessed it a long time ago? There is another work. The author of this last work is simply a subtitle. But the audience in the audience had no chance, so they followed the host and turned their attention to Su Qingmei. Su Qingmei. She didn't listen carefully at all just now. Shen, and Chen. Everyone could not control their expectant expressions and froze. Hasn't Chen Hessian's work already been guessed? I remember he was the second one to be guessed. Can movie Queen Su be wrong about this? I have reason to guess now. Did the fall just hit Su Yinghao's head? I would like to ask the doctors and uncles on the medical team, did you check Su Yinghao's brain just now? End of this chapter.